Tonight, Illinois House Speaker Mike Madigan is proposing a big change to state government. Find out what he wants to get rid of coming up.
Congressman Aaron Schock wants a payroll tax holiday for small businesses. We'll ask him about that and where health care reform stands coming up in a live interview.
And an Illinois man is buying the St. Louis Rams. We'll tell you if he plans to keep them playing in the Edward Jones Dome.
Taking action for you. This is WMBD 31 News at 6.
A top state lawmaker wants to get rid of the lieutenant governor's office. Good evening, I'm Bob Larson.
And I'm Meg Marshall. Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan is introducing a bill which would do away with the office by January of 2015. The office has been making headlines since the man who won the Democratic primary for lieutenant governor bowed out of the race. Scott Lee Cohen came under fire for his criminal history and alleged steroid use.
And with Cohen out, several state Democrats want a state committee to pick them for the Democratic nomination. But other lawmakers think that the ballot should be left blank. We asked Peoria State Representative Jahan Gordon of Peoria for her take.
Who really feels like they have to have a lieutenant governor in the state house? I think most people probably think that we could probably spend that $100,000 or so that's allocated to them in their budget could be spent in a much better way somewhere else.
We also spoke with a man who won the Republican nomination for lieutenant governor about Madigan's proposal. He told us lieutenant governor's office has the potential to create big change.
The office of lieutenant governor has been an underutilized asset for far too long in Illinois. Rather than eliminating it because of the recent political black eye, the office should be elevated and used to address the terrible tax, regulatory, and tort environments in Illinois.
60% of the Illinois General Assembly will have to approve Madigan's proposal. If that happens, the issue would be put on a ballot and voters would decide. Meantime, Governor Pat Quinn will get more time to work on his state budget address. State law says the governor must have it ready by February 17th, but the General Assembly today approved giving him a 3-week extension. Governor Quinn says he needs more time to gather input from members of the Illinois General Assembly. Illinois is facing a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit and is behind on payments to social service agencies and schools across the state. President Bill Clinton is okay after a scare this afternoon. The former president reportedly suffered chest pains. A spokesman says Mr. Clinton was admitted to Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in Manhattan, where he had 2 stents placed in a coronary artery. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is on her way to New York City from Washington, D.C. And now we go to Meg.
Well, Bob, we're joined today by Congressman Aaron Schock, who is proposing the Relief Act, which would mean a payroll tax holiday for small businesses. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be with you, Meg.
Can you explain a little bit more about this act and what you felt was needed?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about jobs, and there's been a lot of talk about improving our economy, and it's my fervent belief that the way we're going to do that is by investing in our small businesses. There's been a lot of government spending, a lot of growth of government, but 7 out of the 10 new jobs created last year were done so by small businesses. So if we're serious about creating jobs, we ought to be serious about targeting the true job creators in this country, which are business, not government. The Relief Act, simply put, gives a payroll tax holiday to businesses which will help both the business as well as the employee, who neither will have to contribute to the payroll taxes of the federal government for a year period. This, by independent estimates from business groups and labor groups alike, have estimated a creation of over 2 million jobs with the creation of the Relief Act. I sponsored the bill, have introduced it with Walt Minnick, a Democrat from Idaho. It's getting a good broad base of support. The President has now mentioned a payroll tax holiday as a part of his plan, and I'm hopeful that sooner rather than later we can take action so the real job creators can get to work turning this economy around.
So hoping to move forward with it soon then.
Correct.
Well, you also have been talking a lot in Washington about health care reform in the recent months, but it seems to have died down a bit in the headlines. Can you tell us where we stand at this point and what it will take to pass health care reform, or if you will pass health care reform?
Well, the President obviously shifted focus because the polls and the recent elections with Scott Brown in Massachusetts, the New Jersey and Virginia races have shown that the majority is a little out of step with where most of America is, and that is with the economy. People are worried about their job if they've got it. They're worried about finding one if they don't. So they want Congress, they want the president focused on the economy more so than health care. So that's why it's taken a back burner to the economy and job creation, which is, I can tell you, coming home every weekend is the #1 issue my constituents and I think greater America want us to work on. So health care is still a problem. It's still an issue that we need to tackle. I believe we need health care reform, and I think the president will get bipartisan support if and when he and Speaker Pelosi and Harry Reid are willing to come more to the middle, which is where most of Americans are, and quite frankly, most of even his party is. I mean, he has an 81-seat majority in the House. They had a 60-seat, now 59-seat majority in the Senate. This isn't just a Republican-Democrat issue. This is finding a health care reform proposal that America can support, that helps America across the board, and that ultimately will get Republicans and Democrats on board. And we'll get on board in a bipartisan way when it's one that mainstream America can support.
Now, the president recently ordered a freeze on discretionary federal spending. Will that help to control the U.S.'s growing deficit, and what else, in your opinion, needs to be done?
Well, discretionary spending is a portion of that. The largest liabilities to this country, though, are Medicare and Social Security. And until we, again, in a bipartisan way, address those two huge unfunded liabilities to this country, both of which, I might add, will go broke if nothing's done before you or I reach the age of entitlement to those two programs. We need to address that, and that's really discretionary spending, though, you know, needs to be a part of that. But those two programs really need to be addressed because they're not sustainable, and if nothing is done, the resources, the cash will be depleted for both Social Security and Medicare before my generation and the next and yours ever reaps any benefits of what we've paid in.
Now, really quickly, earlier in the newscast, we heard what Jehan Gordon had to say about the position of Lieutenant Governor, which has obviously been in question with this recent primary. What's your take as a former state representative?
I agree with Jehan Gordon. I agree with Mike Madigan. Look, we've gone for nearly a year now, over a year, without a lieutenant governor. I don't think that that our state has suffered because we haven't had a lieutenant governor. Rod Blagojevich and Pat Quinn didn't exactly work well together, quite frankly. So, look, our state is, again, crippled with unfunded liability, with mountains of debt. Now, eliminating the lieutenant governor's office is not going to right-size the ship in and of itself, but it's another layer of bureaucracy. It's another a group of government officials that we don't need on the payroll, and it's more than just lieutenant governor's salary, I might add. It's all of his staff, his offices, the fleet of vehicles, and the whole bureaucracy that goes with having a lieutenant governor. So I think it's a first good step in a long list of cuts that need to take place here in the state of Illinois to put our financial order in straits.
All right. Congressman Aaron Schock, thank you again for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
Congressman Schock has been dealing with some rough weather in Washington, D.C., and for more on what we will face here coming into the weekend, let's head over to Marcus.
At least we're not seeing what they are seeing in the nation's capital. We've been very fortunate of that with two big storms out east. We had one moderate storm here in central Illinois, I-74 in Fond du Lac, though a lot of sunshine throughout the afternoon, so it wasn't a bad day at all, although it was a little chilly. Now, a weak little disturbance that's pushing through central Illinois will bring some light flurry activity to the area, but we're not anticipating any chances for accumulation. We'll see the light flurries as we head through the overnight tonight and into tomorrow as well, with a high into the mid-20s. Another round of snow could be here by the end of the weekend. We'll talk about that in your 3-light forecast coming up in just a bit. Bob?
Thanks a lot. An Illinois businessman is buying a majority stake in the St. Louis Rams. Shahid Khan is the president of an auto parts maker in Urbana and will own about 60% of the football team. The NFL has to approve the deal. Khan wants to keep the Rams in St. Louis.
Prayers have been answered at a local homeless shelter. Last week we told you Home Sweet Home Ministries in Bloomington needed to expand its basement to meet a growing demand, but there was no funding for the $20,000 project. But 15 hours after our story aired, a Bloomington construction worker stepped up to not only do the renovations, but to pay for them as well. A group of volunteers got started on the project today, and Home Sweet Home says it never would have happened without WMBD TV.
This is going to be great because we're going to expand to 5 days a week for food boxes, and we'll be able to service so many more people.
Home Sweet Home hopes to have the work done by March the 2nd. That's when the extended food box service would start. The shelter served a record 80,000 people in 2009.
This Peoria neighborhood might look quiet, but what's happening on the streets is keeping one woman from sleeping. Find out where the noise is coming from coming up.